Live from WRAL News Headquarters in Raleigh, your number one source for local news. WRAL News, coverage you can count on.
Some of the heaviest bands of rain from Francine are starting to push into New Orleans at this point. I'll show you how much rain and storm surge they'll see there and what our chances are of seeing any rain from this system.
More than 50,000 families in North Carolina could soon be able to afford sending their child to private school. The vote expected today on a near $500 million voucher program.
And we will soon know how UNC system schools will reallocate funds dedicated to DEI programs. The change is expected today to make sure schools follow the new system policy. Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you. I'm Michelle McConaughey.
I'm Chris Lovingood. We have a lot we're getting to this morning, but first we really want to get to meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner. Elizabeth, you have been tracking Hurricane Francine right now. It's in the Gulf of Mexico. How close is it to Louisiana?
Well, the center of circulation is about 200 miles south of Louisiana. But of course, all the impacts from this storm are well ahead of the center of circulation. Once the center comes through and passes by, pretty much it's over. So heaviest rain bands are now moving into Louisiana. We're starting to see some stronger winds here. We're going to see this making landfall potentially as a Category 2. The point of the center of circulation, why we track that, is that's when we see the heaviest winds, the strongest winds, but the heaviest rain will be out ahead of it, and the strongest storm surge also will be out ahead of it. So it's moving northeast at 12 miles per hour. It's picked up a little bit of speed. The winds are still at 90 miles per hour, but it is likely to be Cat 2 at around 100 miles per hour as it makes landfall closer to 5 or 6 o'clock this evening. It moves onshore and dissipates by the time we get to the weekend, but it doesn't mean that it stops dumping rain. Take a look at the rainfall as it moves up the Mississippi Valley. It also will be spreading rain well to the east from Florida through Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. It's likely to stall, though, to our south along a front, and we just don't see a whole lot of measurable rain out of that system. We'll talk about what else could happen, though, coming up. Nice sky out here this morning, just some high thin clouds, 62 at RDU right now with a dew point of 58. It's going to be a comfortable day today. We'll see highs in the low 80s. Our humidity stays low today, but starts to go up a little bit the next few days with some additional cloud cover. We'll talk about what our potential is for rain over the weekend coming up. Ken?
All right, Elizabeth, happening now in the WRAL Traffic Center. We have a number of incidents dotting our live traffic map, but it's less about the incidents and more about the usual morning congestion that we see on the Beltline, particularly as we isolate the Beltline. This is the south side of the Beltline going all the way back to Rock Quarry Road. That's going to add at least 5 minutes to your morning commute if the south side is part of your commute this morning. We're also seeing the usual slowdown on the north side of the Beltline as well. That's going to be a problem for you as well in terms of a 3 to 5 minute delay heading that way. We're also monitoring this crash over there in Roseville, right there on South Main Street in the southbound lane near Lewisburg Road. You can see the huge backup it's causing there on Lewisburg Road coming into the capital city. You know, I would recommend going, US 1, but as you can see, US 1 is having its own issues as well. So just give yourself some extra time if you're getting ready to head out this morning. And speaking of some extra time, look at these delay times coming in. They're actually getting better, to be honest with you. Coming in from Knightdale and those southbound lanes of 87, you're looking at an 8-minute delay. A few minutes ago, that was up to 18. And of course, the troubled spot remains US 1 Capitol Boulevard coming in from Wake Forest. You're looking at a 12-minute delay this morning.
Thanks, Ken. People participated in a symbolic stair climb at Kenan Stadium. It's a way to honor the lives lost on September 11th, 2001. And WRAL's Nick Perlin is there. Nick, tell us about the deeper meaning behind this event.
Well, Michelle, this was supposed to commemorate those first responders who climbed up 110 flights of stairs on September 11th, 2001 at the World Trade Center to try to save as many innocent lives as they could. And I do want to show you what this looked like a couple hours ago when students were here. It was about hundreds of people who were here climbing these flights of stairs here at Kenan Stadium. Many different groups at UNC and some schools like Duke were even in attendance. This is the 11th annual stair climb that happened here at Kenan Stadium, and we do know, of course, thousands of Americans sadly lost their lives due to these terrorist attacks, and we know hundreds of first responders as well lost their lives trying to save so many people. We even spoke to a firefighter who worked nearby in New York. This is what he had to say about the attacks and this event.
23 years ago felt like yesterday to myself, you know. It's important. We wear it on the sleeves of our shirt, never forget. You know, so it's important to never forget the sacrifices that men and women in uniform have made, helping and trying to save lives of other people.
He also told us he was very touched by the turnout this morning with the amount of people that were here to show their support and commemoration for what was a horrible day for our country with so many lives lost. He wants to emphasize that people will never forget what happened that day. Reporting live in Chapel Hill, Nick Perlin, WRAL News.
Today, the State House is expected to approve hundreds of millions of dollars in additional funding for private school vouchers. The Opportunity Scholarships, as they're called, provide up to $7,500 for families to send their kids to private school. It amounts to more than $250 million in public money. 50,000 families have been on a wait list for those scholarships. Republicans support the measure, but Democrats believe approving this takes away from public school investment. This bill would also require sheriff's offices to comply with requests from federal immigration and custom enforcement officials.
And there's a group gathering today for a news conference against that bill. Every Child NC is dedicated to providing more resources to public schools. The Stop Private School Vouchers press conference will happen outside of the legislative building around 12:30 this afternoon. The House is expected to vote around 2 p.m.
This morning, we'll learn for the first time how all UNC system universities are repurposing dollars and jobs. These are dollars and jobs that were previously supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. The Board of Governors repealed its DEI policy during the summer, and that was replaced with one stressing principled neutrality. Universities had until September 1st to submit their plans to reallocate the money and reorganize jobs for DEI on their campuses. WRAL will have a camera in the room when those new policies are unveiled and discussed. This morning, we'll get a better idea of where inflation stands. That'll happen ahead of a crucial meeting that may come with an interest rate cut. WRAL's Kelsey Coffey joins us in Raleigh right now live. And Kelsey, economists predict that the report will show that inflation is actually slowing down.
Chris, that's exactly what economists are predicting. So we'll be able to get a better idea of where we stand today once that report is released. We usually get the impact of inflation the most whenever we're looking at the gas pump and at everyday grocery items like eggs. So let's talk a little bit about the average price of eggs here. The average price of eggs at the beginning of this year was $2.52. That's a little more than half of what they cost at the same time last year, but still higher than what they cost before the pandemic. Economist Gerald Cohen with UNC says data shows people's wages are catching up to inflation. It just doesn't feel that way. Everyday grocery items are still more expensive than pre-pandemic prices, like we just showed you with eggs. But prices for items you don't buy every day, like used cars, are going down. Today's report should give us an indication on what the Fed will do with interest rates. Economists expect interest rates will drop as inflation continues to cool. So we're expecting that report should be released within the next 30 minutes, and we'll keep you updated. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News, live in Raleigh.
Registered voters who watched the debate say that Harris turned in a better performance than Trump. According to a CNN poll, 63% said Harris outperformed Trump. Prior to the debate, the same voters were evenly split on who would do better. Voters gave Trump a 20-point advantage over Harris after the debate on handling the economy, 55% to 35%. 82% of people who watched the debate say it did not affect their choice for president, while only 4% said it changed their minds. The majority on a Fox News voter panel post-debate said that they believe Harris won the debate.
The Harris campaign is calling for another debate in October. They made the comments that were happening after the last night's debate in Philadelphia. Trump has also called for multiple debates, and that means a second matchup between the two. It's likely. Vice presidential candidates Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz agreed to debate October 1st.
And reaction from North Carolina's elected leaders is pouring in after last night's debate between Harris and Trump. Governor Roy Cooper was the first to post about the debate. He was part of NBC's pre-debate coverage in the spin room. He says, "We just watched Donald Trump come slowly unraveled. He was angry and incoherent. Kamala Harris was focused and presidential." Raleigh Mayor Marianne Baldwin reposted this statement.
Republican Senator Tom Tillis shared his reaction on the social media platform X. He says, quote, "Democrats replaced their candidate at this debate, but the choice remains the same. 4 more years of Trump's economic success and secure borders, or 4 more years of Biden-Harris's out-of-control inflation and record levels of illegal immigration."
More than 70 wildfires are destroying parts of the western part of our country. A look at the devastation as thousands of people and animals are being forced out of their homes.
And as the nation remembers the tragic events of 9/11, staff at the 9/11 Museum are working to stop the spread of misinformation. Hear how one woman is using her firsthand experience to educate young people.
We're seeing some high thin clouds out there this morning, making for a beautiful sunrise earlier. We'll see mostly cloudy skies by late today, a high of 83. Some cloud cover then from Thursday into the weekend, but very little chance of rain out of our next system. I'll show you what to expect through the weekend coming up. (8:13) tracking Hurricane Francine, which is likely to become a Category 2 storm before it makes landfall late this afternoon right here on the coast of Louisiana. Right now, it's about 200 miles southwest of Morgan City, Louisiana, moving northeast at 12 miles per hour, winds at 90, but could be at 100 by the time we get to early afternoon, and then, of course, making landfall here. So as the center of circulation moves in, that's when we'll see the strongest winds, and we could see some wind damage. We've already seen a lot of rain ahead of this storm. Most of the rain is in front of or to the right side of the center of circulation. So lots of heavy rain, 5 to 10 inches are possible, of course, and some storm surge too. I'll show you the storm surge coming up in just a little bit. It moves on up into the Mississippi Valley and dissipates by the time we get to Friday. So it doesn't last too long, but it will sit there as a low and continue to produce some rain. Of course, hurricane warning in effect for the central coast of Louisiana, and here in the red shaded area, this is where we could see 9-foot storm surge. New Orleans likely to see 3-foot storm surge. So definitely some storm surge flooding issues there. Talk about other flooding issues from southeast Louisiana eastward all the way into Florida and Alabama, Mississippi. That's where the heaviest rain is going to be. Matter of fact, the southwestern corner of Louisiana may not see a lot of heavy rain. And you can see how that spreads northward, and that's going to be anywhere from 4 to 8 inches up the Mississippi Valley on the east side of it. But of course, the best chance of flooding is going to be down across parts of Mississippi and Louisiana. Let's follow that storm as it moves northward and watch all this rain out to the east. We're going to see a front developing here and stalling well to our south across Georgia and Alabama, and that's going to keep much rain from moving into our area. But what may happen is along this front, another potential tropical low could develop. We're not likely to see much rain from Francine. This is a look at our Francine totals, probably 1/10 of an inch or so. But then we add that potential new storm that could develop, and then we're really talking about some heavy rain. In our viewing area, anywhere from 1 inch to as much as 3 or 4 inches of rain, and that would be early next week. We'll watch that low potentially developing here on Futurecast. That new low forms. Unclear whether or not it will be a tropical system, but it definitely looks like a lot of heavy rain, from almost nothing from Francine to as much as over 1 inch on Monday and possibly 2 inches on Tuesday from that system. 20% chance that it becomes tropical, but boy, it's really getting cranked up out here. This could be Gordon soon, 90% chance there, and then 2 others. So a lot happening in the tropics right now. If you have outdoor plans this weekend, Saturday just looking cloudy, and then Sunday there may be a few isolated showers. Going to give it a 30% chance for Sunday, and then we may really have to amp up that chance for rain on Monday and Tuesday. So stay tuned.
All right. All new into the WRAL Traffic Center. We're monitoring a crash over in Durham on I-885 this morning. It just came in. It's near TW Alexander Drive, and you can see it's already causing quite a bit of backup there. I would recommend using the eastbound lanes of Highway 70 as an alternate route to get into the capital city to avoid the slowdown you're seeing right now. Back here in Wake County, let's isolate the Beltline, shall we, and show you exactly what's going on. You can see the usual congestion this morning. Just check the sensors. You're looking at maybe an 8 to 10 minute delay, both on the south side of the Beltline as well as that northern loop over there around Capitol Boulevard and Wake Forest Road and the like. This crash we've been following for the last hour. So it's on Main Street there in Lewisburg Road, just around the Roseville area. You can see the huge backup it's causing coming into the capital city. Once you get to Perry Creek Road, it's clear sailing, but I would recommend US 1 Capitol Boulevard as an alternate route, but you can see that's having its own issues as well. So give yourself some extra time coming in, and here's why. Look at these delay times we're talking about. It's actually getting better if you're coming in from Nightdale. You're just looking at an 8-minute delay on those southbound lanes of 87 and a 12-minute delay coming in from US 1 on Capitol Boulevard.
Tens of thousands of people out west are under wildfire evacuation orders and warnings. You can see right here. Authorities say the U.S. now has more than 70 large active fires, and some are growing rapidly. Look at this on your screen, the smoke billowing here. In Orange County, California, what's called the airport fire is expanding rapidly. It was started Monday. The other fires are also close by, and some people can see all 3 from one single spot. 7 other states are also facing wildfires.
There were some tense moments on last night's debate as Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump met on the stage for the first time. The candidates sparred over the economy, immigration, and reproductive rights during the 90-minute debate riddled with personal attacks. NBC's Bree Jackson has more.
Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump shaking hands before facing off on the debate stage, sparring over a top issue for many voters, the economy.
This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class.
Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
On abortion,
for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible.
The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
Throughout the debate, Trump pivoted to the topic of immigration, blasting Harris for challenges at the southern border.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in.
After hearing Trump defend the insurrectionists who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6, the former prosecutor painted the former president as a threat while urging Americans to reject his presidential bid.
End the chaos and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome.
Trump repeating false claims about election fraud as both candidates make their case to voters on the debate stage. Afterwards, Trump making a rare spin room appearance to tout his performance, while Vice President Harris picked up an endorsement and praise from megastar Taylor Swift.
That was Bree Jackson reporting. Many people remember the crystal clear sky before the attacks on 9/11 in 2001. Meteorologist Chris Michaels explains how a hurricane hundreds of miles offshore was responsible for the blue sky that day.
Exactly. That's one thing that if you lived anywhere on the East Coast, you just remember how it looked in the hours leading up to the attacks on 9/11. You had that hurricane hundreds of miles offshore. You had a front that was pushing it away from the northeast. But we'll talk about what that hurricane meant in just a little bit. That front was helping to bring in some dry air and 25-mile-per-hour gusts that actually took the smoke plumes out of New York City. So to think that it could have been even more unfathomable than it already was. Hurricane Erin, meanwhile, was hundreds of miles offshore. And as Elizabeth has been showing you with Francine, there's different sides to tropical systems. And on the southwestern side, where New York City and Washington, D.C. were, it was dry, it was breezy, and it was because of the air that was sinking on the western side of a tropical system. So that's something that we'll see with Francine. As you see, the rain totals farther to the west are much lower, but as it goes through the Mississippi Valley, it brings a lot of rain, 4 to 8 inches of rain here over the course of the next few days. But for our purposes, we're too far removed from that storm. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll show you another storm that now has a 20% chance of developing just off our coast.
All right, thanks, Chris. As many remember, the nearly 3,000 lives lost that day, staff at the 9/11 Museum are busy educating people less familiar with the events. Kevin Uretsky shares more about their fight to stop the spread of misinformation.
Wednesday marks 23 years since the September 11th terror attacks. But amidst the memorials and outpouring of emotions, guides at New York City's 9/11 Museum say they are regularly correcting online misinformation about the assault, especially among young people born after 2001.
I understand that 100 million have been born since that date, just here in America.
Marianne Braverman was working in Tower 2 that fateful day. She sounded the alarm for her coworkers to evacuate.
When I saw that fireball, I knew this was nothing normal.
Braverman has been using her first-hand experience as a survivor, educating visitors to the 9/11 Museum since it opened in 2014. But for young Americans who aren't familiar with the events of 9/11 because they weren't alive yet, Braverman is helping to clarify a lot of their confusion.
I love seeing a light go off when they understand how I've explained how the tower fell. So some of the stuff I've seen on the internet is not correct. How could those terrorists have gotten on the planes with box cutters? And I explained to them that before September 11th, you could carry a knife blade up to 5 inches long on a plane.
While it can be hard to tell children and teens the truth about violence, Braverman stresses how countless people work to try and save one another.
And that's, to me, the most important spirit of 9/11 that we can remember, to take with us.
A key inflation report is out today. Coming up, what economic experts hope to learn about it.
As you get into your car, tune to WRAL News Plus on your radio. In Raleigh on 99.3 FM. In Durham, 96.5 FM. And everywhere on 101.5 HD3.
Good morning and happy Wednesday. Time now is 8:26. I'm Michelle McConaughey. Another beautiful morning will lead into another beautiful day. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner with a live look over Apex.
Yeah, pretty here. We do have blue skies out there. Just a little bit of high thin cloud cover. Those high thin clouds are coming from Francine, but we're actually going to see very little rain from that storm. It'll mostly just be some cloud cover that we see over the next few days. It's 57 in Lewisburg, 61 in Fayetteville, 62 in South Hill. Starting to warm up just a touch. Our humidity stays on the lower side today, so it'll still be comfortable for running even this afternoon as our temperatures are in the low 80s. Ken?
All right, happening now in the WRAL Traffic Center. We want to isolate the Beltline and show you exactly what's going on because many of you use the Beltline as your morning commute. You're looking at the slowdown on the south side of the Beltline. We'll also see that slowdown on the northern loop of the Beltline. I just checked the sensors and you're looking like an 18 to 20 minute delay if you take the northern side of the Beltline. So keep that in mind as you're about to head out. Coming up at the top of the hour over on Fox 5, I'll have an update as to how much of a delay you're going to look at coming in from 87 out of Nightdale.
Thanks, Ken. Today, the Republican-led State House is expected to approve hundreds of millions of dollars in additional funding for private school vouchers. The so-called Opportunity Scholarships provide up to $7,500 for families to send their kids to private school. Coming up next on Fox 50, we are minutes away from learning more about how inflation could affect a possible interest rate cut. And coming up next on today's seasonal skincare and updating your routine.
Shot in 4K ultra high definition. Your number one source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
This is a look at radar. You can see where we have flood watches and warnings as some of those heavy rain bands are moving into Louisiana. I'll show you what the impacts will be there during the day today and for us over the weekend.
A special tribute to the thousands of people who lost their lives on 9/11 23 years ago today. The deep meaning behind a symbolic stair climb at UNC's Kenan Stadium.
And this morning, we're expected to get a better idea of how inflation is affecting the price of what you pay for groceries, how today's consumer price index is expected to play into next week's interest rate cut. That report due out any minute now at 8:30. So we will have that for you coming up. Thanks for joining us. I'm Michelle McConaughey.
I'm Chris Levingood. We are watching for that economic report, but we're also watching another story that's not happening here, but rather at the Gulf of Mexico. Meteorologist Elizabeth Gardner is tracking Hurricane Francine.
Yeah, that storm likely to become Category 2 before it makes landfall coming up around the evening commute around 5 or 6 p.m. Starting to see some very heavy rainfall on the coast now. Just in the last 2 hours, some heavy rain bands starting to work their way into New Orleans. Could be as much as 3 feet of storm surge in New Orleans, but 9 feet back to the south and west. It's about 200 miles south of the coastline right now, moving northeast at 12 miles per hour with winds at 90. Likely to see winds at 100 making landfall. So that means the storm is going to have all of the danger associated with it. We're going to see wind damage. We're going to see a high storm surge and heavy rain as much as 5 to 10 inches down here around Louisiana. It moves up the Mississippi Valley and spreads rain off to the east too, as much as 4 to 8 inches along the path of that storm, but it doesn't quite reach North Carolina. We'll see a boundary, a front developing here. That's going to kind of hold the moisture back here from Atlanta down toward Jacksonville, and it just stalls there. Now, we may see a low developing along that front and pushing rain into our area by early next week, but it won't be technically Francine. We'll talk more about that coming up. Over the airport, you can see those beautiful high thin clouds. That is from Francine. 62 is our temperature, and we're looking at a dew point of 58. So it's still very comfortable for us this morning, and it'll be a comfortable afternoon with temperatures in the low 80s. 80s. We will see increasing clouds, but not expecting rain today. Ken?
All right, Elizabeth, happening now in the WRAL Traffic Center. We continue to monitor this crash that's happened over in Durham this morning. I-885, we're talking about the Durham Freeway near TW Alexander Drive this morning. You can see the backup that it's causing right now. If this is part of your morning commute, I will look at Highway 70, those eastbound lanes on its alternate route coming into the capital city. Isolating the Beltline this morning, you're seeing the usual slowdown on the south side of the Beltline, going all the way back to Rock Quarry Road. Similarly, on the northern side of the Beltline, coming in off those southbound lanes of 87. This is what you're looking at. If you're trying to get from 87 to Wade Avenue, you're looking at an 18-minute delay if you're using those westbound lanes of I-440 this morning. Elsewhere around the community, we're monitoring this crash on Main Street in Lewisburg Road, but you can see the huge morning congestion that it usually causes this morning in addition to that crash you're looking at. Of course, once you get to Perry Creek Road, you're fine, but you know, I was thinking about suggesting US 1 as an alternate route, but you can see US 1 has its own problems this morning coming into the capital city. In terms of those delay times, you're looking at a 13-minute delay from our friends up there on Wake Forest. You're just looking at a 4-minute delay coming in from Knightdale on those southbound lanes of 87 this morning.
Ken, thank you. This morning, UNC's Kenan Stadium was filled for the annual 9/11 stair climb. That event pays tribute to the New York Fire Department by climbing the equivalent of the 110 stories of the World Trade Center. One man shares what that meant to him going to that event.
It was hard. I'm not going to lie. Words really can't put that into description of when your city's attacked. It's a feeling of helplessness, anger, but then a purpose to go serve and to help and to do.
NC State is also holding their second annual stair climb today at Carter Finley Stadium. Today, President Biden and Vice President Harris will commemorate the lives lost on September 11, 2001. We want to show you now a live look at the 9/11 memorial site in New York City this morning. You can see right here, Biden and looks like former President Donald Trump are there as well. Biden and Harris will participate at a ceremony at Ground Zero, which looks to be getting underway right there. We see Vice President Kamala Harris right there on screen, as well as J.D. Vance over to the right. Then they are going to fly to Shanksville, Pennsylvania after this event and participate in a wreath-laying ceremony at the Flight 93 Memorial. They'll then go to the Pentagon for a wreath-laying ceremony that's happening there.
And today, the Republican-led State House is expected to approve hundreds of millions of dollars in additional funding for private school vouchers. The so-called Opportunity Scholarships provide up to $7,500 for families to send their kids to private school. It amounts to more than $250 million in public money. 50,000 families have been on a wait list for those scholarships. Republicans support the measure. Democrats believe the large price tag takes away from the public school investment. This bill would also require sheriff's offices to comply with requests from federal immigration and customs enforcement officials.
There's a group gathering today for a news conference against that bill. Every Child NC is dedicated to providing more resources to public schools. The Stop Private Schools voucher press conference will happen outside the legislative building around 12:30 this afternoon. The House is expected to vote around 2 p.m.
This morning, we'll learn for the first time how all UNC system universities are repurposing dollars and jobs previously supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Board of Governors repealed its DEI policy during the summer and replaced it with one stressing principled neutrality. Universities, including UNC Chapel Hill and NC State, had until September 1st to submit their plans to reallocate the money and reorganize jobs for DEI on their campuses. WRAL will have a camera in the room when those new policies are unveiled and discussed.
Registered voters who watched last night's presidential debate say Vice President Kamala Harris performed better than former President Donald Trump. According to a CNN poll, 63% said Harris outperformed Trump. Prior to the debate, the same voters were evenly split on who would do better. After the debate, voters gave Trump a 20-point advantage over Harris on handling the economy, 55% to 35%. And 82% of people who watched the debate say that it didn't affect their choice for president at all, while only 4% said it changed their minds. The majority on a Fox News voter panel post-debate said they believe Harris won the debate.
And the Harris campaign is calling for another debate in October. They made the comments moments after the end of last night's event in Philadelphia. And Trump has also called for multiple debates, so a second matchup between the two seems likely in the future. Meanwhile, vice presidential candidates Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz have agreed to a debate on October 1st.
President Biden praised Harris's debate performance. Just after midnight, the president wrote in a post on X, the debate, quote, wasn't even close. He also said Harris proved that she is the best choice to lead our nation forward.
And today, our WRAL News poll takes an in-depth look at the top issues for this election, from immigration to the economy, crime, and more. We'll reveal which issues will matter most at the polls here in North Carolina. Those results starting this afternoon at 4 on WRAL. And this morning, we will get a better idea of where inflation stands ahead of a crucial meeting that may come with an interest rate cut. WRAL's Kelsey Coffey joins us live from Raleigh this morning. And Kelsey, economists predict that report will show inflation is slowing down. We're waiting for that to come out any minute now.
Michelle, that report actually was just released about 10 minutes ago, so we're seeing those new numbers here. It shows that consumer prices rose 0.2% in August. It's up 2.5% from a year earlier. And we really see the impacts of inflation when it comes to the gas pump, as well as everyday grocery items like your eggs, for example. So let's look at this. The average price of eggs at some point earlier this year was $2.52. That's a little more than half of what they cost at the same time last year, but still higher than what they cost before the pandemic. Economist Gerald Cohen with UNC says data shows people's wages are catching up with inflation. It just doesn't feel that way. Everyday grocery items are still more expensive than pre-pandemic prices, like we just showed you with eggs, but prices for items you don't buy every day, like used cars, are going down. So today's report should give us an indication of what the Fed will do with interest rates. Economists expect that interest rates will drop. And this is really important to note that this would make the first interest rate drop in more than 4 years. And the Fed is set to meet next week. So we'll be sure to keep you updated on those rates. Kelsey Coffey, WRAL News, live in Raleigh.
And Jeff Hogan in the WRAL Live Center. Just to play off of what Kelsey was just talking about there, about this high interest in what consumer prices were going to be, that CPI index. This is the big headline, as you see right here. It rose 0.2%, as Kelsey said. That's month to month for the month of August. And this all plays into the rate of price increases, trying to fall back to those pre-pandemic levels. Not quite getting there. This is not the news that folks were looking for as they try to, the Fed, debate now that key interest rate cut that could come next week. Now, year-to-year inflation, I want to show you some of the other headlines from some of the experts here as folks are saying that higher than expected, not what traders were hoping for out of this, but 2.6% is what the year-to-year inflation was expected. It's 2.5%. So a muted response there, according to experts, a little bit better. Core inflation, that was unchanged, 3.2%. And keep in mind, June of 2022, that inflation rate was at 9.1%.
Thanks, Jeff. And you are taking a look at satellite loop of Hurricane Francine as it heads toward the Louisiana coast this morning. It is expected to make landfall later today. Evacuation orders are in place in several coastal communities. Louisiana's governor has issued a state of emergency. The center mass is likely to pass close by New Orleans. Coastal communities in Texas are already filling with water as Francine dumps heavy rain there. A South Carolina woman is using her talents to help other women battling cancer. How the death of a family member inspired her to start her own wig brand.
Plus, Ariana DeBose is cooking up some frightening recipes. We've got a look at the North Carolina native's new horror film.
8:44, and of course, Francine moving ever more closely here to the coast of Louisiana. Of course, we say that. We're talking about the center of circulation where the strongest winds will be. We've already, since yesterday, started to see rain moving through, but some of the heaviest rain bands are now moving onshore here and into New Orleans, and that's where some of the strong winds will be. And of course, that will increase our potential for the stronger storm surge and the heavier rain, too. It's a center of circulation is about 200 miles southwest of the coastline there in Louisiana. Winds at 90 miles miles per hour, moving northeast at about 12 miles per hour. Likely to be a Category 2 by this afternoon with 100-mile-per-hour winds, likely to make landfall as a Cat 2. So not only will we see strong damaging winds, but we have up to 9 feet of storm surge possible along the Louisiana coast, as well as 5 to 10 inches of rain. So they're going to see everything out of this system. The heaviest rainfall is going to be from the Mississippi River eastward all the way to Georgia, including Mississippi and Alabama, and of course Louisiana traveling northward. You can see here as we move through the day tomorrow, that low moves northward. It loses its tropical characteristics, but continues to bring some heavy rain. We could have some flooding in parts of Georgia where we have a front that stalls. And then along that front out here in the Atlantic, we may see another low developing that could have tropical characteristics. And that's the one that could bring us some heavy rain early next week, and not necessarily Francine. Today's going to be a nice quiet day for us. Just some high thin cloud cover there at RDU. 62 is our temperature, our dew point 58. So feeling nice and comfortable hour by hour. Of course, our temperatures are looking pretty mild for us today, except temperatures to be in the low 80s. And of course, we continue to watch what is going to be developing for us. We're going to see a bump up in our humidity as we get through the next couple of days, as we start to see some of that tropical moisture moving into our area. So keep that in mind as you're making your plans. Over the weekend, it's likely to be fairly quiet for us, but we do have the potential for that second system to develop off the coast, and that could bring us the potential for some heavier rain. We take a look at Futurecast here, and you can see some of that rain lifting northward. Notice how a lot of it ends up staying across parts of the southeast and not moving into North Carolina. Our 5-day rainfall forecast for Friday and Saturday, just 20%, 30% chance on Sunday, and then by Tuesday it's up to 50. We may have to bump that up even more depending on how and when this particular low develops. It's unclear if it will be a tropical system. There's a 20% chance of that now, but heavy rain is pretty likely with that system. So again, we'll be watching it pretty closely. Temperatures are pretty mild at the moment. Heading out the door, we're mostly in the low 60s. We'll see afternoon highs in the low 80s for this afternoon. Temperatures will start to drop a little bit toward the end of the week and the weekend as we cloud up. We'll see cloudy skies for Thursday and Friday, and a small chance for rain over the weekend. And again, we're going to be watching Tuesday very closely. We could see several inches of rain if that low develops.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Right now, the 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony is getting started at Ground Zero in New York.
Yeah, let's listen live as they honor those who died 23 years ago.
See, former President Donald Trump had showed up, President Biden showed up, Vice President Kamala Harris is there as well. I didn't see Tim Walz, but I imagine that he is there for this particular event.
Yeah, hard to believe this was 23 years ago that this happened. Yeah. May we never forget.
I was in the 3rd grade when that happened. Gym class outside, came inside, rolled the TV in, and we had to see all that, and our teacher kind of put it into perspective. We're little kids at the time, right?
Yeah.
But he explained what was going on, and I didn't quite get it, but then my mom kind of, put a little more knowledge on me when I went home.
I was on Long Island, and we could see and smell the smoke from the city because I was only about 40 minutes away from Manhattan. Nobody was allowed outside. Teachers were crying, putting newspaper up on the windows in the classroom. Parents were frantic, pulling their kids out of school. So just a terrible, terrible day 23 years ago. All right, moving on now. A Dunn police officer is being honored for his heroic action during a convenience store shooting while he was off duty. Joshua Elliott was presented an award for valor at the Greater Fayetteville Chamber's 6th annual Valor Award ceremony last night. Despite being shot himself, Officer Elliott managed to help a woman involved in a domestic violence incident. The department says it is proud to have Elliott on its team. The families have a lot of options for fun this weekend, including 3 free events. WRAL lifestyle editor Kathy Hanrahan is here with details to help you plan your weekend. Kathy, let's start with one of the biggest events this weekend. I remember this from last year, Bug Fest.
I love Bug Fest. Okay, every year the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences celebrates bugs of all kinds. Okay, this year they're focusing on butterflies and moths. It's happening Saturday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Lots of hands-on exhibits. You can go and touch bugs. There's also going to have the cockroach races, which are always very popular, and it's free to attend.
And it's delicious, right?
You can taste some bug cuisine, yes.
Yes, you can. Also, there are some free movies to check out this weekend as well.
So downtown Cary Park, they're hosting a free screening of the movie Encanto. That's Friday night. Also Friday night, we've got Friday the 13th. They're doing a special market and movie night, food trucks, live music, and a free screening of the 2003 movie Freaky Friday.
Both really good movies. Also, Hispanic Heritage Month starts on Sunday. There's actually a festival planned that day. Tell us about La Fiesta del Pueblo.
This is one of the biggest celebrations being held. It's happening on Fayetteville Street from noon to 6 p.m. There's going to be live music, dance performances, art exhibits, and family activities, and it's free.
Very fun. And families can find out more about these events by going to WRAL.com and searching keyword family. Thanks, Kathy.
A massive fire in eastern Wake County that was seen for miles away is under control this morning. What you're looking at here, this is Sky 5 video of the flames from the site on South Selma Road. At least 9 cars were destroyed along with a pile of construction material. The battalion chief from the Wendell Fire Department told WRAL the car's fuel tanks helped fuel these flames. One firefighter was treated for heat exhaustion, and investigators are trying to figure out what started this fire.
A hairstylist in South Carolina is taking her passion and using it to help women battling illnesses. Denise Hammond has been styling hair for 25 years, and now she's dedicating her time and talents to making wigs for women dealing with hair loss for various reasons, including cancer. The military veteran says she lost her sister to cancer several years ago, and it inspired her to help. Hammond recently founded Wigs for Warriors with the philosophy of when you look good, you feel good.
Ariana DeBose is cooking up some ghostly meals for her latest role. Amazon Prime released the trailer to her latest movie, House of Spoils. DeBose stars as a chef working to open her first restaurant, but finds it was previously haunted by the owner who was used to work there. The horror thriller premieres on October 3rd on Prime Video. And our first teacher of the week this school year has dedicated more than 30 years to education. And she is not done yet. WRAL's Ken Smith introduces us to a teacher who uses kindness to educate her students beyond the classroom.
Let's see. Is it on?
It's on. The mic was on, and so is Ellen Govert, always on point for her 4th grade students at Davis Drive Elementary in Wake County.
Eventually, the old man fell asleep again.
It's the only grade level she's ever taught in her 31 years of teaching.
They're funny, and they're curious, and they're excited about things. So when I'm trying to get them excited about reading or learning something new, they respond to that excitement.
Ms. Govert is always on a mission to help her 9 and 10-year-olds master this chapter of their lives, and she's made a difference for so many.
And first and foremost, we're teachers, and to celebrate those little moments with the kids is just really heartwarming, particularly for the kids who've worked really hard to master a skill.
To help guide her students, Ms. Govert has 10 kindness posters prominently displayed in her classroom, and one that gets to the heart of why she is a teacher, the power of yet and her deep love for spending her days with children.
They come in and every kid knows something different, perhaps for math or reading, and I always tell the kids, look, you just haven't learned it yet.
Yes.
And you will.
Ms. Govert, you are WRAL's Teacher of the Week. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Ken Smith, WRAL News.
And if you'd like to nominate a teacher, go to WRAL.com and enter Teacher of the Week in the search box. We've got more weather and traffic up next.